What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to TLDcast, the Training, Learning, and Development broadcast, community chat, and conference. Did I hit them all? Yes. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hit up the website. Find out more about what is going on in the Training, Learning, and Development community. Find out more about colleagues that you may not know in the industry doing work just like you and being able to learn from them, share your knowledge and expertise with them, because more than anything, that is what we are, and that is a community. Some people call them a community of practice or things like what we're doing. I just like to think of us as just a fully engaged community who's passionate about the work that we do. And we love, more than anything, helping other people get better at what they do. That's why we're in this business, right? So as we go through today, let me just start by saying, be helpful today and be nice and engage and ask good questions and be a fantastic community for today's chat. Because really, this is not a webinar. This is not a formalized thing. What we do here on TLDcast is much more informal and something that doesn't happen anyplace else. So if you're here looking for a really super formalized high-level webinar, you're in the wrong place, because what we do here is more like just a chat amongst colleagues, peers, friends, and I'm just the guy here facilitating that conversation. So some days it goes great. Other days we go off the rails, and I take full responsibility for that. But today is not one of those days, because we have the amazing, wonderful Joseph Suarez here with us today. How's it going, Joe?
Once I unmute my mic, it's going awesome. How are you, Brent?
Things always go better when you're unmuted, right?
They do. They do.
Yeah, things are going great. Going great. So you had some technical difficulties, but hey, we got you on. So that's really all that counts.
Yeah, I had a whole setup prepared, a nice backdrop, and my webcam was on a tripod. I was good to go. And of course, last minute problems with the laptop. I had to switch over to this my main desk here with the boring backdrop. So sorry about that, but we'll make do nonetheless.
Well, it seems to be going around, because same things are going on with me this morning.
It's like the flu. It's like the flu, the technical problems. Maybe they'll give us a shot next year.
Those little data packets infect us all. Be careful.
Yeah, well, is there any sort of sanitation cream for data packets? I don't know.
Not yet, not that I know of. Well, even with the boring background, Joe, it's great to have you here. And thanks for coming to be our guest on Video Friday. You've done a lot of great work to help TLDC. Hoping we can dive in on that today.
Yeah, I have a whole spiel prepared here, or we can just kind of talk through it. Whatever you guys are more up for, comfortable with.
Happy to let you lead, Joe. What you got?
All right. So I said in my description for the event today that I'm a semi-professional video producer, and there was some questions around that. What do they mean, or what did I mean when I said semi-professional? So why don't we start there? Video production can be broken into three parts. So you have your pre-production, which is basically your planning, your actual production, which is mostly your shooting, and then your post-production, which is the editing. So I was always, or not always, for years now, I've been pretty skilled at the editing part, but it wasn't until a couple of years back that I wanted to focus on getting better at production. Previous to that, it was a lack of availability for gear to even get that good at production. So I actually made it my focus at work, like my personal development plan for the year, to get better at video a couple of years back. And I got a chance to do that, and it was really cool. And my manager at the time knew from seeing me grow what I was capable of versus what he was using previously, which was a production house. So we established a good back and forth where he knew when to call on me for video versus pulling in an external production house. And as it goes in the corporate world, when things are going perfectly, things are due for change. So we got a new manager, and one of the first things I tried to do with her was level set on my production capabilities. So I showed her some video examples that I produced versus some from the production group we used. And I felt like she was good. We were on the right page. But then a couple weeks later, she sends out an email in response to a request for video. And she says that, well, we could use this production house if you want to, but we also have some amateur video production capabilities on our team that we can leverage. So I was like, okay, so maybe I talked myself down a little too much because amateur's too far down on the low end scale. So that's where I came up with this term semi-pro to put myself in between.
Well, that's a good term. I mean, certainly there's a lot of semi-pro, other fields. Basically means you get maybe paid for it a little sometimes. But it's not like your full-time gig usually. That's what I think of when I think of that term. How about you, Brent?
I was just going to say, so not to derail things, but this is just how my mind works. What does professional mean, right? Like, is it a quality thing? Is it I get paid for it and that's the only thing I do thing? Like, when we use the term professional, what actually defines that?
Yeah, of course. Technically speaking, if you get paid to do it, it's your profession. So I guess I could claim that. But being an e-learning developer is just one of my skills in my repertoire, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. I think what makes somebody a pro video producer, director, filmmaker, whatever, there's a high degree of skill involved in that. So it's the knowing the craft definitely goes into it and being able to practice the craft, but also having good gear and the ability to use that gear. So you can't just go out and buy gear and then automatically you're a pro now, but having access to that gear and knowing how to use it is a big part of it as well. And both at work and at home, I run on pretty much a shoestring budget. So that's another barrier to calling myself a pro. And also, this is let's see if I can get it in shot. This is my main camera that I've had for 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. And I unapologetically leave it on auto mode all the time. Another reason I would hesitate to call myself a professional.
I can't believe it. I do too. So it's all
he's not a semi-pro. He's an auto pro. That's great. There's no harm in that. A lot of the times the native inbuilt features, unless you're doing something special, that is the best mode to be on. And even pros, like, top-notch pros who don't do anything else, they use that setting sometimes, too.
Yeah. I find I get in more trouble when I try and mess around with the manual settings.
Yeah.
More times than not.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did learn, though, so here's all I can share for my tip of the day when it comes to the photography stuff. The two other that are like semi-manual. So speaking of semi-professional, there are those two settings that are like the semi-manual settings, which are I think it's AV and AP. So the aperture priority and what's the other one?
There's AF, autofocus, AE, auto exposure.
No.
What do you?
It's aperture priority and shutter priority. Yes, thank you, Colin.
Okay.
So you can pick one that you control, but then the camera does the rest. Yeah. And that's the one that you do. So I often lock mine down to the widest shutter possible, and then I let the camera handle everything else, just so I can make sure that I'm always as wide open as I can possibly be, and then everything else gets adjusted around that. That was my first step away from being auto.
Yeah.
Just a tip.
I like to apply because I mentioned I have a bunch of skills. I like to apply the 80-20 rule, or some butchered form of it, where I like to learn and try and master the fundamentals of different things like photography and graphic design and e-learning development and all this kind of different stuff, and try some advanced things to just get there as much as I can. And then, so that's like applying 20% effort to get like 80% of the, whatever you would call it, capability out of something. So when it comes to video, understanding the basics, actually, speaking of the fundamentals of video, I also want to recommend a book, again, that we constantly recommend, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck by Steve Stockman. So if you want to learn the fundamentals of video, this is a great place to start. So
originally brought to us by Sam Rogers, by the way.
Right.
I mean, Sam, you were the first one that introduced me to that book.
Yeah, I should probably talk to Steve again and see if he can come chat with us sometime.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
He's a really cool guy.
So fundamentals of video, like framing, composition, composing your shots, lighting, audio, getting those things right at a fundamental level will get your videos super close to being awesome. And then all the extra stuff that goes into it, messing with your aperture and f-stops and all that stuff, that'll get you that little bit more that will make you stand out. In particular, if I can show this, I have no idea if this is showing up because I'm covering my webcam. Part 1 of his book, Think Like a Director. So that's kind of like, if you really want to get better at video, that's kind of like that Matrix moment where you take the red pill versus the blue pill, because I think I got the colors right there. I don't remember the Matrix.
I always forget which one is which too, so don't worry about it.
It's because once you start to think like a director, you can't really go back. You can't really watch videos naively like you could before, because you're constantly thinking, or it's really hard to turn off that part of your brain that wants to know how they got that shot. So I put some homework in the Slack, and that apparently I picked a more controversial video than I intended, but my goal there was just I could have picked kind of any video, but my goal there was to have people watch the video, which was, if you didn't see it, it was a guy where it's just a silly scene where he's chasing a lemon around, and he was placing his camera in different places at different angles at different times to make it look like he's chasing this lemon that has a mind of its own that's just going everywhere. So my goal there was to have people start to think like a director and think in shots is how Steve phrases it. And that's been really crucial for me, both as a semi-pro photographer, I guess I would call myself as well, and a videographer. Just the fact that as I'm walking around, I kind of get a spidey sense for when things have good composition, where I can just pull my camera out and snap some shots. Speaking of which,
I think most people were afraid that you were going to volunteer them to do the lemon challenge. I think that's why people freaked out. So I know that was my first thought. I was like, oh, dang it, am I going to have to eat a lemon now? But then I read your post and I'm like, oh no, it's good. It's just a good video. Yeah. But you're right. I find myself doing exactly the things that you were talking about when you mentioned, look at all the different shots and think of all these things. And then my first thought was, doesn't everybody do that as soon as you watch a video? Like, and then I thought, well, actually probably people don't. Like literally from the very first shot all the way to the end, all I could think about was, oh, I'll bet he put that on a little tripod. Oh, I'll bet that one he just set on the ground. Oh, I'll bet that's a drone. Oh, I'll bet, I wonder if he used his iPhone for that shot, or if that's his DSLR on a tripod, or, just like all those things as I'm going through it. And I think that particular style, thinking shots, and the way that sort of rapid editing of being able to do it is very, very, very much film oriented. And I think what a lot of people default to, just because video is motion, just click the record button. Like how many shots did it take him to just get out of his house and into his car? It was like a 6 or 7 shot sequence. Most people would just stand outside, hold the camera, and move with him while he's coming out of his house and get him into the car. but he did, 4 or 5 different shots from different angles, coming out of his house, walking to his car, opening his car door, jumping in his car, showing his foot on the gas pedal or the clutch, whatever he was driving, grabbing the steering wheel, cranking up the motor, all that kind of stuff. That's very film centric, but it makes a video really interesting. And I think something that we should be aware of as e-learning professionals is if you can learn how to do that and take that extra time instead of just saying, okay, we're going to film you coming out of that house and getting into that car. If we can stop and think, okay, let's take, instead of, the 2 minutes it's going to take to record that, let's take 30 minutes and set up a few shots and think how we can piece this together nicely in order to, because when we talk about engaging our learners and engaging our employees and making engaging videos, that's the kind of thing that I think is really, editing is really, really powerful in being able to do that and keeping people like just wondering what's going to happen next and where's that lemon going to go next and how's he doing that and and just moving people along. It's not the movement of the camera, it's not necessarily the movement even within the frame, it's the movement of the edits and from one shot to the next that I think really helps tell the story in a better way that sucks people in.
Yeah, and I think and actually again in the book they go into this about being intentional, just how intentional you are when you go into a video plays a big role in how the final outcome is going to turn out. So you can do everything from not having any idea what you're going to do and just hit the damn button, as Brian Fanzo says, all the way to having a super detailed shot list where you're planning out every different scene and the camera angle and how close up or far back it's going to be and all that kind of stuff. I like to play in the space in between, which I think is what happened in the video example I used. I think he had a rough idea of a scene where he was going to do something, go into the grocery store and do something with lemons. And I think he just kind of went with it. And that's what we see is the final result. I highly doubt he had a super scripted out or even printed out, shot list that he worked from.
And guys like that, though, I think they wing it, right? Don't they? I mean, they've already kind of know, they've done this so many times. They're like, okay, the basic idea of this joke is going to be, I'm going to go through all this effort and then all of a sudden realize that there's a lemon in my fridge. Okay, cool. How am I going to do that? Okay, I'm going to jump in my car. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to, I'm going to show the trip there. There's going to be a lot of different things that happen along the way. Maybe the lemons fall out. Oh, here, this would be cool. Let's have a drone of the car. That kind of stuff.
And he could have shot the scene where he's comes back to his house and finds the lemon in his fridge. He could have shot that first. Right. The magic of editing, you don't have to do anything in the order they actually occur in the video.
Yeah, and Sam, I cut you off. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to respond to Kim's comment. It's conjecture here. We don't know how much he actually storyboarded things out or if it was in his head or what sequence the shots were, as Joe's bringing up. And he might have made it shorter had he had more time. So there's two things going on there that I wanted to just pause and maybe let Joe speak about a little bit. There's how long it takes to make a shorter edit. Sometimes the thing that is smaller and more compact can take a little more time. And Joe, especially coming from editing into production, I'd love to hear a little bit about that. And then there's the audience that he's speaking to, which is not necessarily us. It's his YouTube audience. It's people that know him and him getting just a little extra carried away with it and like going utterly too ridiculous. Like even when he's receiving the, there's a lemon, like the looks back and forth to the camera and the long pot, like it's very extended and kind of cartoony because that's who follows him and that's what they expect from him. And, so he's maybe not aiming to make something that is compact in the first place because he wants to draw it out for people. Like how complex can I make this eating a lemon bit turn into? But then also maybe running out of time and not being able to chop it down as much. Joe, from the editing part, how is it that you think of production, having had that editing experience, having had the perspective of what you're going to chop out, the bits that do suck that you're going to remove? How does that change how you're capturing things?
So I'd say having more experience editing first, I was more used to being handed footage and then taking that available footage and telling a story or getting whatever point across was intended from that. So it's looking at all the existing footage and being like, all right, what here is usable where I can tell a story? So then moving into the production side, I was able to think ahead into, what's going to be a good shot that bleeds into another good shot, versus, let's just capture it all and then we'll worry about it in post, so to speak. I was already thinking ahead. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I just wanted to take that think like a director idea that you're talking about and give a little bit of an example of knowing what you're aiming for in that end part, or having had practice dealing with really sucky stuff that maybe you've been handed from other people can actually be an advantage in knowing what it is that you want to capture when you go to do that.
Yeah. So
for sure.
When capturing B-roll, like I did for the conference, there's really, it's filler material. So there's really no grand plan with it other than here's some stuff that can be used in between. Now, I did have the thought that maybe I'll assemble it all, combine with some other people's stuff to make a quick montage video, which I ended up doing. But aside from that, I didn't really have any plans other than let's see how this stuff can be used. And because no one was expecting me necessarily to have anything, that also freed me up to just do whatever, experiment with some stuff, which I can share here shortly. That some of it turned out great, some of it didn't, but that's just the nature of B-roll. You just, you end up condensing it down to what's usable.
That maybe new to this, help them understand what is B-roll. When you say you went around and collected B-roll, what are we talking about?
So B-roll, it goes before my time in video. There was a day when it was reels. This is back in the day, we can say, where there was reels of film. And you would have your A-roll, which I understand to be your primary footage that you're going to use. And then your B-roll was filler material that you could use in between when you want to make a cut, and it would be awkward to make a cut from one A-roll segment to another. So you use the B-roll as filler. So what would be a good example? Like a talking head video or interview, and then they want to transition to a different topic, so they'll use some B-roll footage in between or something like that. Is that a good explanation? Am I accurate in my?
I learned it in the news production world, right? It was there was a particular flow and a particular pattern that makes it very easy to put together packages, they call them, right, or stories for the news. And if you watch this, you'll start to understand kind of the pattern. And the pattern is you go and you get an interview, and that interview ends up being your A-roll, the whole entire thing, that basically you get as much of that audio as you possibly can. And then after you've shot that, then you run around and you get your B-roll. Your reporter just chats with the person you were interviewing. You grab the camera, you get a wide shot of the scene, you get a medium shot, maybe you get a close-up of them writing something on a pad of paper. So you can have this extra stuff. Maybe there's a certificate on the wall of the person you just interviewed. Okay, you get some video of that. Maybe there's other people waiting in a room. Maybe there's an angry mob outside, so you get the mob shots, and all that extra stuff that you need to help tell the story that isn't the primary interview or conversation. That's your extra B-roll stuff that gives you an opportunity to tell that story through visuals.
And I'll chime in here on this too. I mean, both of those answers are great for how to think of B-roll. There's, it used to be a B camera, and rather than changing out the rolls, you just have the cameras and all that. How I think about B-roll is its context that is independent of time. So I have a story that I want to tell that's going to be the main capture that's got like beginning, middle, and end kind of elements to it. B-roll is just stuff I can stick in pretty much anywhere to cover my mistakes. So if I need to make an edit and I've got, you know, the guy talking here, but we need to actually take this thing that he said from another take and we need to put it in, you know, and swap it out and change the timeline of it and all that, it's really messy and it doesn't look right. And there's stuff that's jumping around. But if you just show a shot of his hands for a second while he's talking, it doesn't matter what he was actually saying while his hands were moving. We see that his hands are moving, and it kind of glosses over the main timeline. So I use B-roll stuff just thinking of like, oh, I need to pad this out another second so that it lines up with the soundtrack, or, oh, I need to, you know, tighten this up a little bit. I'm at 301 and it needs to be 259. I'm going to chop B-roll. I'm looking for that to be able to basically keep the larger context.
Yeah, my advice to folks is to kind of do what you did, Joe, and start off being an editor. Start off practicing editing footage, because then you do really start to think, oh, I really could have used this shot, or wow, it would have been a much smoother transition if I had this type of shot or that type of shot. And then you start to think like an editor. And I think my favorite word of all time that I saw on, who's the guy that, I can't even think of his darn name now. The guy that used to test things and blow things up, and he had the show around it, the science, not Bill Nye, but used to be two guys, and now it's just one guy.
Someone in the chat will know.
They would test out the Mythbusters. Thank you.
Mythbusters. Yeah.
I knew somebody would mind meld with me there short and get that. But whoever that guy is, I watched a behind the scenes conversation with him. Actually, holy moly, didn't we have him on as a guest?
No.
Talk about Adam Savage.
Yeah, not Adam Savage. Yeah, I'm talking about him, but I'm talking about one of his producers.
Great guy, Jamie. Yeah.
Anyways, he used the term predator, which I thought was really cool. A producer / editor, somebody that does both.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that guy. He was the one that told us about being a predator.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was a fantastic term. So, being that person that does the editing, you also go out and you do the shooting. You also have to be concerned about the mic. You're pretty much producing everything, and you're the editor that, you have to take care of all of that stuff. But I think starting in that editing suite makes you better at all the other stuff as opposed to vice versa.
Yeah. And, the lower the budget, the more you're going to be doing yourself anyway, or a team of 1 or 2 people is going to be doing. So it helps to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think Colin makes a great point. I mean, it seems like that is pretty much the norm these days. With as fast as we have to produce content, it's a one-man band, and so everybody's a predator, right? I mean, everybody is pretty much doing it, unless you're on a super high-budget film or you've got a really big video production facility and you've got a key grip. I always just wanted to do a production where I could hire a key grip. That's all I want.
Someone to hold your keys while you hold.
Yeah, right. I just want to have somebody have that in the credits as it rolls by in one of my productions. It's nothing else.
I've been fortunate enough to sit in on some video shoots done by a production house, and that was really insightful to see an entire team of people down to a makeup person and setting up the teleprompter for people to talk to, and the green screen and a huge camera rig with monitors and things like that. It's really insightful to see them work, how they capture the audio going from like a boom mic that feeds into the camera directly or some intermediary, and you learn a lot that way. And I also did an internship like early 2000s with a group that would go out and do interview people, and that was insightful too, to see, back then there was a much larger gear, and it was just insightful to see how that process works. And the thing I always go back to is, I remember that the guy that was interviewing, asking the questions, his body language was like, he would be like, yeah, like encourage them to keep going, the interviewee to keep going without verbally saying things. And I always remember that, and I've tried it myself, just be like, yeah, keep going, even though I don't have the best body language, but that was something I always go back to.
I get your point there. It's funny, I haven't done the TV thing in so many years, but we had an instance going on in my neighborhood with a digital sign going up, I don't know, and the news was doing a story on it, and they couldn't find anybody else in the neighborhood to take one particular side, the we don't want that in our neighborhood side of the story. And so my wife was like, I don't want to be on TV, but they're looking for somebody. You know how to do this kind of stuff. You go out and you do the interview. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know the controversy. And she's like, I'll tell you. So she feeds me, this is your position. This is where you stand on it. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go out now. I can BS that story. And so, so he interviewed me, and he did. I was noticing that I got so distracted by him doing it, though, because again, in my mind, while I'm talking, trying to be the interviewee, I'm also thinking, how's she running the camera over there? Oh, what kind of lavalier did he put on me just then? Or what kind of handheld is he sticking up in my face, and how's he going to ask these questions, and the guy was a pro, man. I mean, he knew exactly how many sound bites he needed, and he asked the same question in like 4 different ways. And I answered in 4 different lengths and with 4 different bits of emphasis on different parts. And if you go back now, because they did a 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news broadcast, and they used a different clip for each one. I was like, all right, I gave him what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. So which may or may not have anything to do with the issue. Now you're ready for politics, Brent.
It was education.
So we're at the 30-minute mark. It looks like I want to share some stuff on my screen, but I need to install the screen Crowdcast extension. Yeah. So why don't you do your 30-minute break, and then if I have to refresh the browser, I can do that.
And can you say a little about what you'll be showing us?
So I want to talk about the stuff I captured at the conference, so you can see all the B-roll, and then how I condensed it down into what I used.
That's what I was going to ask you about. That was going to be my teaser, by the way. So perfect setup. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk specifically about all that great footage you caught, and let's get more details on how all of that happened. So while Joe is doing that, I am going to share my screen. I'll let Sam chat with the chat room, and I will pick up on all of the things that I totally forgot to say at the beginning of the show, and that is, don't forget about the Slack group. I dropped the link in there for Todd, who I think is new. Todd, thanks for hanging out with us. Good to see you. If anybody else is new, thanks for coming and hanging out with us today on Video Friday. If you want us to drop that link in again, happy to do so. We also have a podcast. If you're interested in listening to this on your commute, or while you're working out at the gym, or maybe while you're just working through your honeydew list at home, you can just pop in your earbuds and have a listen to all the fantastic past episodes of TLDcast from either iTunes or what is the other podcatcher that we use? Rats, I always forget the names of them, but you should be able to put the RSS feed into just about anything and be able to pull that down. Zencast, yes, sorry, I keep forgetting that. Perfect, okay. Thank you, Craig. And also, don't forget to become a member. If you guys get value out of what we do here, which I hope you do. I mean, I'm hoping that you wouldn't be here if you didn't feel like this was incredibly valuable. So if you're getting a lot of great value out of it, get a little extra value and become a paid member as we start to produce and put together more paid member events in the future. It is a great way to just kind of support the efforts here, support the background. There is a lot more that goes on behind the scenes with TLDC than I think a lot of people are aware of. And we also couldn't do that without your financial support and help, but also the incredible volunteer hours and time that so many of you put in and that want to be an extra added part of the TLDC community. We really, really appreciate that, all of you. You know, Sam for doing Video Fridays with me, super appreciative of that effort. Craig jumping in and helping out with notes. Kara helps us with our social media, and so many others that just go above and beyond and really, really take an active role in being a community member. And we really, really do appreciate that. We couldn't do this without you. And to that point as well, this community is really all about you and your work and helping you get better at the work that you're doing. And so if there is something specific that you're struggling with or that you need information on or want to understand better, please let us know. Reach out into the community and connect with somebody, or just throw up a question in the help section of the TLD chat. Or you can shoot Luis or myself an email, and we're happy to work that in. We do this every single day, and so it's not as easy as it might look. And so trying to find guests, trying to find topics, trying to make sure that we're relevant in everything that you need. We couldn't do it without input from you guys. So please don't be shy. Feel free to reach out and let us know what you need, and we'll do our best to make that happen. And with that, we'll jump right back in and take a look at some of these videos and figure out how the heck did Joe make such cool stuff at TLDC 18.
It really was cool too. So hopefully, yeah, we'll get to see a little bit of that. Joe, you're still on mute. If thank you.
I was going to, pantomime the rest.
Oh, okay, great. We could just watch your lips move. That's good.
Yep. So I have, because I wasn't sure how well PowerPoint would work, so I put everything into a Google Photos album.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at here. I see my screen is big. Is that what everyone else is seeing? Cool.
Yes.
So, you know what? Can I take a step back and go back to my camera? How do I do that?
Oh, just close the video, or I'll close it for you.
Cool. So I should talk first about the gear I actually ended up bringing to the conference. So I mentioned I have this guy here. I wasn't. Oh,
crap! Sorry. That was me. Sorry. Hold on. Don't click anything. That was me.
Which was a Nikon. What?
Yeah, it's a Nikon 5100. I used to work at a computer and electronics retailer, and I got a employee discount. And when I gave my 2-week notice, I went on a humongous shopping spree, and that was a big purchase that I made. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to capture video when I came down here. It was just actually talking about pre-production. There was a couple Video Fridays where you two were talking about the planning of how you guys were going to do the live casting and all that kind of stuff. And at one point there was a call for volunteers to bring stuff if they wanted to. So I didn't want to bring that and take up a lot of space, but I did fit everything into this little bag here. It's a felt bag that came with a shotgun mic that I bought. So in my bag of tricks,
everything you fit literally, like, wow, what is everything?
Well, everything is basically this, a GoPro, because my main camera is this guy that stays in my pocket. So this is my secondary camera. It's a GoPro. It's got a custom case on it, nice metal case, for 2 reasons. The first reason is, if you're familiar with GoPros, you know that the case that it comes with is waterproof and airtight. So it's great if you're creating like surfing videos or something with a lot of wind, like putting it on the outside of a car. But other than that, you get like this muffled audio because the external microphone is covered up. But if you know anything about cameras, you know the external microphone isn't that great anyway, and you shouldn't rely on it. So I got this case for also because I can open up the side panel here and have those exposed. And the reason I want to do that is, if I can find it. I have this adapter here, which is a mini USB to 3.5-inch audio jack. So you just plug that into the GoPro there, and that allows you to have an external microphone on your GoPro. So you could put like a mini shotgun mic there.
Nice.
I bought a bunch of cheap accessories for the GoPro, and my favorite one is this clip. It's probably like no more powerful than like something where you would, clip a bag of chips closed, but it's got some extra teeth on there, and it allows me to put this in some interesting places. But another reason I like it is because unlike a lot of GoPro accessories, it allows it to be freestanding. And one thing I learned at the conference when I was experimenting is that if there's a super flat surface, I can actually just glide the GoPro across, and it kind of creates like a sliding effect, like I had a nice expensive piece of equipment, which I didn't actually have. And then lastly, I'll add that you can kind of use it as a grip to hold it.
Yeah.
So I brought that with me. I also brought a very, very cheap mini tripod, a cell phone holder, so you can prop my cell phone on there. And lastly, this, if you have a GoPro, a must-have where it's a GoPro accessory to your standard tripod adapter thing.
Pretty much anything that you can do with a
quarter 20.
Quarter 20. Good.
There you go. It allows anything that you're doing with the GoPro to work with pretty much anything you're doing with the camera, as far as how you'd mount it and all that kind of stuff. That's the universal translator for GoPro.
Yep. So Colin's asking, how do I get rid of the fishbowl or fisheye effect from the GoPro in post? So you can actually set the camera up so it doesn't have that initially. It has, if I remember right, wide, medium, and narrow settings. But
I didn't realize you could do that on the GoPro.
Yeah.
I thought there was just one lens setting and that was it.
I like to leave it on at least medium because you can fix it in post. And in Adobe Premiere, which I use, there's actually a preset effect to remove the GoPro fisheye effect.
Oh.
So I like using that because by doing that, you keep the extra wide angle without losing too much quality. If you have a super strong fisheye effect and you remove that, you might start to lose some quality, but I haven't noticed any. So I like to keep it on at least medium. So that's that. Let me share my screen again. We can talk more about what I captured.
Yeah, that screen share was a great little teaser because I recognized that clip. There it is.
All right. So day one of the conference, I get there. I asked, does anyone need help? And it looked like everyone was good with what they're doing. So I looked around and I thought, what would make a really cool shot is if I set up my GoPro in the corner of the room and just do a time lapse. So I don't know how well this is coming across on Crowdcast.
Yeah, it's coming across fine.
Oh, cool. So yeah, it's I set it on the opposite side of the room from where people were coming in because I didn't want people first coming in and standing in the way of the camera angle, which turned out good. What didn't turn out good is no one ended up sitting in that front row of seats. So it actually looks like the room is emptier than it actually was. But other than that, it turned out great. So I filmed probably most of Brent's morning talk there. And then the battery died on the GoPro. So that was basically what I captured day one.
Cool.
Day two, I got really creative. So that clip came in handy here. I attached it to the back of a chair. And you might have seen me if you were at the event rolling it around.
The universal do-it-yourself dolly.
Exactly. Now, the concrete floor and the plastic wheels did not make for very good footage of rolling around, but there was one clip I was able to use there. What I used this more for was swiveling the chair around to get a nice pan effect.
Yeah.
I also tried walking around with the GoPro, and it just did not work. I knew that no matter how steady I held it, it would be shaky, but it was really shaky. And the GoPros are super sensitive to vibration. I don't think they have any built-in image stabilization or anything like that.
One thing that I've done in the past around that, the chair idea is one that I've used a lot as well. If you change the speed of the playback to either be faster or slower, you don't notice that shake nearly as much.
Okay.
And you can take a couple seconds of something that maybe you shot a couple minutes of, condense it down, just like you did with your time lapse, and crop it in just a little bit, and you won't notice any of the shake if you speed it up. And also slowing down is a great effect, especially when you're using that kind of sweep of just tilting the chair. Works great.
Excellent tip. I love it.
I'm from Ohio, and I'm an early riser anyway. So that meant when I was in Phoenix, I was up at 4:30 every morning, and I thought, why don't I go out and see some sunrises, get some time lapse footage of that. So that's what I did here. You can see that clip in action. It worked great. If I would have brought one more accessory with me, I could have had this horizontal, but I didn't. So that was just something I fixed in post. But I show this image to show you how I captured some of the sunrise footage I got, which I later used in the session video. So that's the so what we're looking at now is all the B-roll, usable B-roll. So I probably got like 10 to 12 minutes of B-roll. And then what I like to do, especially if I'm working with other people, is condense that down to all the usable stuff into one clip. So I got about 3 minutes and 40 seconds out of that. So one thing I wanted to make sure to capture was outside the facility, which was called Galvanize. And here's, a very slow action shot of a car pulling out and a guy walking in. And I like this shot because you can tell it kind of describes that you're in Phoenix, right? The stones and the nice plants there. Here's what I thought would be a good shot. They opened up they're like garage doors to the facility. So it was nice and open air. And I thought, I should put the camera here. But it turns out it was just footage of a parking lot. It wasn't very interesting. So I ended up not using that. Here I had the chair swivel action going on. And I knew I could see that there was sunlight coming in from the light, but I wasn't sure how bad it would be. So I went ahead and filmed it anyway. And it's really washed out, but you get that nice natural sun flare effect. So just by swiveling the chair around, creates a cool effect. And then here's me swiveling and panning the chair around. We got Bethany, Matt, Josh, Craig, and Kara there.
I remember those shots now, and it never dawned on me that you used the chair for that. That's awesome.
Yep. And here's the one shot I used where I was pushing the chair, rolling the chair around. It was just steady enough to use. I guess one of the problems I ran into is good times to shoot video weren't really the best times to capture people in between conference sessions. So ideally, it would have been great to get people really engaged in discussions and things like that. This is pretty much all I captured, where people are just kind of on break. So here, Brent's trying to corral everybody back to start a new presentation. I think it was Ann Wolf's. But there's one clip here that I ended up using. Starts like right about here. Just a quick pan where it looks like Brent's having a nice engaged discussion with the audience. He's really like, come on, guys, get in your seat.
And people are looking at him because he's saying, hey, guys, it's time to come back. And
nobody's back, people.
So here's some of that footage where I tried to walk as steady as I could behind people, but it was just too shaky to use.
But even though it is too shaky to use, though, being able to take like a frame or two or something like that that's even got that motion effect right in the camera can be nice to drop in or to use as backgrounds for other things. Even some of these just as photos. It's cool stuff.
Yeah. So here I'm I thought maybe it'd be cool to go from like the sign to the presenter, the sign to the presenter. And the motion wasn't as fluid as I liked. But, you know, the thing nowadays with footage is it doesn't cost anything to try stuff and get extra footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, what it charges to, or what it costs to charge your battery. So finally here, I talked about sliding this this
I was
clip
going to say, the
across the
whiteboard
table.
tables were probably perfect
yeah.
in your sliding technique.
Perfectly smooth surface where I was just able to gently slide it across and create this cool pan effect. And I ended up using this, and you know, I could have used it any point along that glide, but I chose to use the point where Andrew here was the most animated, just because it made for the best clip. And I just tried some other stuff, which I didn't end up using. So I put the GoPro on a chair again, swiveling it around. It looks fine, but the sliding effect was the best thing, which I ended up using. So we got, you know, 3 minutes 42 seconds of B-roll turned into a 43-second montage. So I can't take credit for this intro sequence. I got that from Luis. I think Mike Sloat might have put that together.
I think Luis got somebody on Fiverr or something like that to build that
cool.
for us.
Fiverr.
Nice.
Going to put us all out of business. Great.
That's where the real pros hang out now.
Yeah.
The real semi-pros.
So this is just a condense of all my B-roll, some still shots I took on my phone, and some of the conference sessions that Mike Sloat took. So that would be what we'd call establishing shots. So it's like, all right, which is, I should have said in the beginning, that was my goal with this montage, is to be like, all right, there was this event called TLDC 18. Where was it? What was it? What was it like? Right? That's kind of the story you're trying to tell with a montage.
Yep.
So similar to how, like, if you watch a sitcom like Seinfeld, at the beginning of each scene, they do a quick, like, 2-second thing about, like, where are they? Like, are they in the apartment? Are they in the diner on the corner? And then they go into the scene. That's what I was trying to do here. Be like, all right, we're in Phoenix. We're at Galvanized. You come into Galvanized.
Bing, 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 bing.
Everyone's coming in.
Perfect. Where's my...
Brent starts talking. He talked more on day 2. Other people talked on day 2. There was lively discussion.
It was nice that we had some different settings between day 1 and day 2 in these classrooms. So it gives a lot more visual interest.
So that's the standalone montage video that I created. And then I shared that on the private Slack group we were using for video production. And Luis was really happy with it. And he said, this reminds me of a Creative Mornings video clip that he saw, which Creative Mornings is kind of like TED Talks. Maybe that's doing it a disservice, but that's probably the closest thing I can compare it to. And they just had a quick intro sequence that did exactly what I was trying to do here. Just set up where it is, what it was like, right? And they had more cupcakes at that particular event.
It was good. I stepped away for a second to show. I made this a long time ago. I have a weird thing with do-it-yourself projects, and so this is my table dolly made out of PVC pipe and skateboard wheels.
Nice.
With a little a 3/4 inch, like, you know,
ball mount
mount on the top. And it's really cool because you can turn the wheels so you can get really smooth, nice arced pan shots. And, you know, it's small. You can probably buy ones now for, you know, super cheap that do this, but I don't know. It was fun to build. So
what's the fun in that? Yeah.
So where was that when we were in Phoenix, Brent?
I totally forgot. I know. It was, you know, one of those boxes in the closet that you forget about when you're stressed out about other things.
Yeah, I guess you did have other things to worry about. Okay.
So I got a couple more quick things to show. So
Please.
Oh yeah,
we
go for it.
mentioned, you know, I had that 43-second montage, and then Luis was like, let's put this at the beginning of each video. And I was like, yeah, okay, but that wasn't really the intention with it. So let me tighten it up and then we'll do that. So here I actually ended up using my time-lapse sunrise footage to just do an even better establishing shot. So we're in Phoenix. In hindsight, I should have put January, but Phoenix 2018, sun comes up. We're at Galvanize. We go inside. People come in. I have these quick flash of light transitions.
Mm-hmm.
Brent talked. People had lively discussion. It's a little thing we call TLDC. And the title of the session and the presenter. And then it goes right into. And that's how I put together all of the conference video sessions. I just had that montage at the beginning and then went through, listened to the video. And if there were times where, the presenter said something like, okay, let's turn to our neighbor and chat for a minute, I would cut that kind of stuff out. But other than that, I just kind of left everything in place. And at the end, I put an outro sequence and that was it. But the one that was tricky was Brian Fanzo's.
Yes.
Because if you weren't at TLDC, you might not know that neither was he. He was in a hotel conference room or something, presenting virtually. So what I did, because the video, you can see Brent is mic'd up here, but Brian was not. He was coming through a live stream via Crowdcast. So the audio that from this recording was just the echoey sound coming out of the speakers. So what I ended up doing was going out to the Crowdcast recording and pulling that down. And I was able to extract the audio. It was low quality audio, but there was no echo to it. So it ended up being better to use. And then since he showed his presentation here, I was able to include that and his thumbnail of his video. And then I just brought those into Premiere. And I'll come back to this screenshot in a minute. But this was the end result where we have his thumbnail of him presenting and his slides.
Great.
Oh, and one last thing about that is I was able to cut out all the technical difficulties that it got to get him started. So in the actual video that's online, Brent says, "Brian, can you hear me?" And then he goes right into his spiel like there was no technical difficulties, which we'll leave it at that. It was seamless.
That's just how it happened in real life. There wasn't anything that went wrong ever. Yeah, that's awesome.
No, it's all perfect. Yeah, no, that was most impressive. When I saw how you did Brian's like that, that blew me away. That was very, very, very cool. I definitely grabbed a clip of that for my Learning Now TV segment. Colin, you're probably recognizing all these fantastic shots. I can't take any credit for that segment that I did. It was all Joe.
So I know we're about time, but I just want to really quickly say, why on earth would I do this? First off, this is a community, and I strongly believe in this community. So that's one. Two, I'm a productive procrastinator, meaning I haven't been successful in stopping procrastination, but what I can do is I can procrastinate productively. So the weekend where I did this, it came down to sitting around and playing video games, doing my taxes, or editing all the video for TLDC 18. So I decided to be more productive, not do my taxes, and get the video done.
Well, as a Sam, I can say Uncle Sam thanks you for that.
And we thank you a million times over. But now that this secret is out, we might be leaning on you a little bit more heavily. So you're going to have to procrastinate on a few more things.
Yeah, thank you for the great work on this and for coming to Video Friday to show us a little of the behind the scenes for how you think about this, what choices you made about where to put the camera and how to use it, what worked, what didn't, and seeing this editing setup that you have here too for all of the sessions that you've edited thus far. How many have you gotten through?
I got through all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all that were recorded. So what you're seeing there, so it looks like 7 or 8.
Okay. Yeah, there's more. There may be just more footage to, but not that Joe has to do all of this. So anyone else who's interested in contributing to the community, who's interested in getting to practice with all this stuff, especially from an editing perspective, before you even go out and shoot stuff, you know, it really helps to be able to think of things this way and to work through these problems just like Joe is showing you, makes your production better. So if you're interested in doing stuff like that, please reach out on the community. Or on Twitter or in the Slack group or all the great things that Brent tells you about at the top and tail of every show. And speaking of which, I think it's about that time.
It is
Maybe
about
a little over that time.
We should probably end the show. Yeah, I was going to try to drop in one last link. I know Paul wanted me to share my my little skateboard dolly thing, but I'm just going to drop a YouTube link in real quick, and you can check it out. I used to follow this guy, the Frugal Filmmaker. And he's got a tutorial on how to make that the skate wheel dolly, table dolly. So check that out and enjoy making your own. And if you make one, show me what you did. Come and do a video Friday and show us your DIY stuff. But now that we've done that, I'm going to close your screen here and say goodbye. But before we do, how can we get a hold of you, Joe Suarez?
Yes. You can go to my website, josephsuarez.com, for all your Joseph Suarez needs.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sam, as always, where can people find you?
Snapsynapse.com, SNAPSYNAPSE. And yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining in Video Friday. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next week. Actually, before I let everybody go, I'm going to put this on the recording. Next week is an amazing week. We've got some incredible guests and some very, very, very interesting conversations planned, some that I've been afraid of having in this format for a while now, but I'm going to put it in the hands of those who have been wanting to have this conversation. So tune in next week and enjoy an absolutely amazing list of guests and conversation topics. Stay tuned. If you don't get the newsletter, hit the website so you can stay up to date if you're missing that. But yeah, next week is going to be a good week here on TLDcast. So I would encourage you all to make some time for it and let all your friends know. So anyways, that's that. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks again, Joe. Thank you, Sam. Take care, everybody. Adios, everybody.